So I was in the coffee shop the other day and I was trying to read this book, but my mind just kept drifting off. I was thinking about that story, that scene in the Bible when just a few of the disciples are called to leave everything to follow Christ. And I was just placing myself in their position. I was wondering really like what that tension must have felt like for them. Because the Bible just leaves us kind of hanging on all that emotional stuff in that moment. It's like Jesus calls them and they go. So with that one statement, they left their fishing boats, which was the only career they'd ever known, and their families, and their lives they'd never be the same. So I'm sitting in that coffee shop, totally distracted from the book I was trying to read and enthralled in this other story in my head and wondering if there was any part in them that just wanted to stay. Or like, what did their mom's face look like when they walked away? Or did their father even try to stop them? And so later in the coffee shop, I came across this article on the regrets of the dying. And the number one regret from those who were about to pass away from this life was this: I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself and not the life others expected me to live. And it clicked. It was like suddenly I totally understood what was happening with the disciples on the shore that day. And really it was simple. No matter how hard anyone tried, they couldn't keep the disciples beside their boats because they'd been called by Christ. They had to respond. Now, that thought challenged me because I can point to so many just very specific times in my life when I felt the call of Christ and it's been met with opposition. I knew there was something that I had to do, and my closest friends were the ones steering me away from it. And not because they didn't love me or want the best for me, but because they did, because that's exactly what they wanted for me. We all have those people that care so deeply about us. They want us to have good lives, comfortable and prosperous lives, safe lives. So they do their best to help us get there. They tell us how we can achieve that life. We pursue degrees, we start careers, we buy homes and cars, and maybe we put down roots and start a family. And eventually we look around and we've achieved that life, that comfortable and prosperous and safe life. But what if this life that we've worked so hard to achieve just actually turned out to be really dangerous? And what if climbing divorce rates and elevated suicide rates and the 70% of us who don't feel engaged or inspired at our jobs actually point to the fact that even after we reach this safe life that we've always wanted, we're not happy? And what if there was another way to live? You know, Jesus confronts our human desire to pursue the safe life with these words to his disciples. He says, "If anyone would come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." Just look at the lives of the disciples. Remember that scene on the shore when Jesus said, "Follow me"? And they had to make a decision. And that decision, that would be one that would affect the rest of their lives and even their deaths. They could either stick with their family, stick with the business that they've always known, and man their father's fishing boats. This was their safe life. This was their destiny. Or they could leave it all behind and follow Christ. There was no other choice. And you know what happened? Every one of the disciples chose to leave his life to follow Christ. I've talked to so many people who are walking down this path, step after step after step. And when I ask them about their direction, and I say, hey, I'm just curious, why'd you take that step? Why that one? And their answer, you know what their answer generally is like, well, because it was next. And so they go through college, and they get a job, and they fall into a pattern of life that means nothing to them because it's safe, or it was next. So if that's you, I just have to tell you, you're not alone. There are so many of us out there who have this burning desire to live for something so much more than ourselves. But we don't. We've become attached to this dangerous, safe life. So if you've ever felt the call to do something with your life that just looks completely ridiculous to everyone around you, there will come a time when you have only two choices. A time when you have to stay with the boats or follow Christ. It may be risky, but at the end of your days, you will have lived an authentic life, true to your calling, and you won't regret the risk you didn't take. So my question for you is this: is now the time to do something completely radical with your life?